All right, so this session, we are going to talk about the vocation plan. This is kind of a summary of the plan here, this page that you got on your seats. And we're going to talk about this because this morning, as you recall, was more kind of spiritual preparation and some education. And now comes some of the practicalities, the real life stuff the diocese has planned, and hopefully you will join in with. Now, why have a plan? You know, ever since I was a little kid, I was very impatient with blue skyers. You know, people that were always daydreaming about things. I had my friend, Sean Rankin. He would always be like, man, when I grow up, I'm going to have a big house. It's going to have a Coke machine in it, and a pool table, and a bowling alley. And I was like, dude, I think Miss Dinsmore will pay us $15 to mow her lawn. Let's do that first. You know, I was always kind of like the guy of action, right? But the truth is, you have to have both, right? You have to have some vision, but then you have to have some execution. Okay? So that's what we're going to talk about today, or this afternoon. Okay, goals of the vocation plan. One is just very, very broad. Help all Catholics to see that their vocation is the path to holiness and happiness. Right? God has made us in a certain way for himself, and our vocation is like the path to get there. Okay. The second is kind of multifold, that every young person in the diocese understands each vocation as a minimum, is invited and inspired to actually consider these vocations, is equipped, knows how to listen deeply for God's call. He kind of has some spiritual muscles to do that. And he is accompanied as they discern. So it has a community of folks, as Father Pratt talked about, a community of people to do that. So we're going to go over 4 elements of the vocation plan: prayer, education, discernment, and inspiration. And we're going to do this in a non-boring way. Okay? Okay, promises, yeah, okay. So I really want to acknowledge, first of all, though, that everyone in this room plays a different role, okay? Therefore, some elements of this plan are going to be more applicable to you than others, right? But nonetheless, I still think that it's good for the kindergarten faith formation teacher to know what's happening at the college, okay? So we're all in this together. This is a shared mission. We're going to go over these quickly. The only aspect that we're going to spend some significant amount of time on is education when we talk about the vocation curriculum. But hang in there. We're going to do this non-boring way. Okay. First aspect of the plan is prayer. And we're very deliberate in this plan to keeping things realistic, not blue skying. Okay? So there's only 3 parts to the prayer. The first is the bishop, as you know, has written this new vocation prayer. That's what we open the whole vocation summit with. And beginning this Sunday, we're asking all parishes to pray this at Sunday Mass. Every parish has already received prayer cards and stickers that they're going to put in the pews or in the inside of the hymnal. And so that's supposed to happen this Sunday, August 7th. I shared with the priest last night, the diocese I grew up in, Savannah, Georgia, we have a vocation prayer that we have prayed for 45 years. Every single parishioner knows it by heart like the Hail Mary. Honestly. Start saying the first words of that, everybody just chimes right in. So the idea is unity. Let's ask the Lord, you guys, from the bottom of our hearts, send your grace into the hearts of our young people, right? That's the idea behind this prayer. And I want to say this. If you go to Mass this Sunday and your priest doesn't pray the prayer, gently remind him that the bishop asked him to do so. Gently. Gently. He might just be a week late. That's okay. Okay. Second thing is the Vocation Crucifix program. You may have seen on the back table, there's actually 2 examples of the Vocation Crucifix. These are in all the schools already. And we want to remind you and invite you to begin this program this fall in the schools, but also perhaps in your parish. And this is what it entails. For the classrooms, this little crucifix travels from the kindergarten class one week, first grade class next week, second grade class next week. And when it comes to your class, you have this little booklet. And there's a prayer for every day of the week, right? It also comes with these little prayer cards, this nice little rhyming vocation prayer that's more suitable for younger kids, okay? So the schools already have this crucifix kit. We're inviting other parishes to adopt this. Do y'all remember these vocation chalice programs that used to happen? Okay? Same exact idea. A different family brings this home each week and prays for vocations in their home. If you already have a chalice program going, just keep that, obviously, okay? This is, frankly, it's easier to get crucifixes than chalices, to be honest, okay? So that's why it's the traveling crucifix program. The third prayer initiative, Holy Hours for Vocations. I think everyone in this room probably already knows this, that there is a very close connection between Eucharistic devotion and vocations. It's undeniable at this point. The CARA study happens every year of newly ordained priests. They ask how many of you regularly engage in Eucharistic adoration before seminary. It's like 75% of guys. So now that's kind of holy hour to pray about my vocation. We're asking parishes to do holy hour for vocations, like an intercession for vocations. And there's even going to be a booklet on this, which is, it used to be right here. There's samples on the back table, intercession for vocations. You'll hear more about this. The 4 dates that are proposed, you don't have to do it on these dates, but these dates make sense. Priesthood Sunday, that would be right around the corner, right? September 24th. World Day of Prayer for Consecrated Life, World Day of Prayer for Vocations. Feast of the Sacred Heart, which is also the feast of I think it's Sanctification of Priests. It's the same day. World Day of Prayer for Sanctification of Priests is June 16th. So what does a holy hour for vocations look like at your parish? Make an important point here is this does not have to come from the pastor per se. Sometimes it's better if you as a parish group organize this and ask your pastor to help facilitate it, okay? So don't only wait for your pastor to say, hey, we're doing this. You guys do it, okay? You guys do it and ask him to be there and facilitate, okay? Sometimes, obviously, the priest is going to tell you you're going to do it, okay? But just be aware of that. And the other point I would say with the holy hours is invite a group that already exists in your parish to be like the main host or something. Like it could be the Knights of Columbus. It could be a women's group. Some group that already exists. That way you already have a bunch of people, that makes sense to be there. But then, of course, invite everybody. And just to tell you, this little booklet is neat because it has some reflections that are applicable to your life too. Like you'll grow also in this holy hour. It's not just for someone else, it's for you too. It's for you too. Okay, so those are the 3 discrete prayer initiatives. These are not the only ways you can pray for vocations, but they're the three in the plan. Okay, now we're going to get into education, and this is probably the bulk of the 4 parts of the plan that we're going to focus on in this session. I know a priest from Peoria, Illinois, who used to be the vocation director. Now he's at the seminary. You know Monsignor Rolfs at, Monsignor Rolfs, he's at in Minnesota. Now he's a spiritual director up there. Well, he told me one day, he used to be rector of Mount St. Mary's Seminary. He told me when he was vocation director, he would visit all the schools, and he came up with a rule of thumb, and it was this. He said, when I visited an elementary classroom, I wanted the students to feel something good about priesthood or religious life. When I went to a middle school classroom, I wanted the students to think something good about priesthood or religious life. When I went to high school classrooms, then I wanted the students to do something good, to discern priesthood or religious life, right? So if you're a kid, you just want a good feeling. Get a little older, you need to start thinking. When you get even older than that, you need to start doing some stuff. As a friend of mine, priest friend of mine says, God can't drive a parked car, so move. Okay. One of the biggest parts of the plan is the introduction of vocation lessons, which is a curriculum supplement. And if you got that blue folder that's on the back, you know a little bit about this. I'm going to explain what this is and why this is important. The curriculum supplement is for both schools and faith formation. There are 2 versions of it when you log in to the website. Okay? Do you see this little login up here? That's where you log in. There's just a little code. I'll give you the code in a second. But the goals of this curriculum are help students understand that holiness is the first vocation, to thoroughly understand each vocation, have the tools to discern later in life. This should be ringing a bell. These are our main goals, right? So the idea is to systematically teach kids at every age level in a way that makes sense for them. And our motto as we were developing this was moving from education to formation. And what does that mean? Okay, I went to CCD in the 1980s. Okay, and I'll be honest, it was not very inspiring. Okay, I mean, I think I learned about the priesthood. It was like holy orders is one of the 7 sacraments. And it was like this very dry thing that did not capture the imagination of a young Sam. So the idea is, just like if you were teaching a child to write, would you make the child, copy out the pages of a book? No. They want to learn how to write. They'd learn how to copy. Okay? Just like you wouldn't teach a kid to pray just by saying memorized prayers. Teach them to open their heart, speak to God in their own voice, okay? The same thing is true when you're talking about vocations. You can't just let this be rote memorization, boring facts. Holy orders is one of the 7 sacraments. You can't do that. You have to engage them, right? Make it interesting, inspiring. And that's what Vocation Lessons does. It has content like that to capture the imagination. So some examples of achieving this. Girl sees sister praying at church. Hi, sister. She says, I don't know if I'm called to that, but I understand what she's doing with her life, and that's awesome. right? She understands that. She appreciates it, right? The boy sees a priest. He says, I don't know if I'm called, but I respect the power of the priesthood. That's where you want to end up with this. Okay, just quickly over the structure. It's 1 unit per grade. I'm gonna be right now going to talk about the schools version. Okay, the schools version takes 1 week of religion classes. The religious ed version is 1 Sunday. You could stretch it to 2 if you want. Every grade, 6 elements: lesson on marriage, priesthood, religious life, and then how to listen. There's also an assessment and what we call a family feature, something to go home and talk to mom and dad about. Theoretically, right? Teachers in the room, hopefully they do this, okay? This can be taught as 1 unit, or if you're busy and you can just, I'm going to fit in the lesson on marriage in November, and then later on in December, we're going to do priesthood. You can do it that way too. They're standalone lessons. And this is a 100% online program, but when you log in, there are also printable PDFs. So if you're a paper and pencil teacher, you can print this stuff out. And that's okay, honestly. One of the cool things, I forgot to mention this, that the students also have a login. So you can tell all your 7th graders, go log in, read such and such section, and do the homework. And they can do it. And it's cool, when the teacher logs in, you'll be able to toggle back and forth between the teacher view and the student view. So here's the login information. This is also in your packets. These packets here. Now I'm going to show you a little 1-minute video just to give you another little flavor of this, okay? So again, if you did not pick up one of these and you are an educator, definitely pick one up. If you're here from your parish but your DRE could not make it, please pick one of these up. Okay, now I'm going to explain something important, okay? What we have learned over the years is that teachers are different, schools are different, and educators like options. We have learned this, it's just the honest truth. Observation, not theory, as Father Pratt said. Okay, so in this folder, the right side of the folder has these little brochures that explain vocation lessons and have the logins. Okay, you go in depth every single grade level. The right side has some hard copy options. So there are some worksheets that you can buy and print out, or not print out, I'm sorry, buy and give to your students and have them do in the classroom, okay? So the right side has a little bit easier options, quick, easy options. The right side is online and more in depth, okay? Now, I want to talk about one element of this because it's very important. So this is called the Learn to Discern workbook. This is for teenagers. So it's appropriate for high school level kids. And the dream here for the diocese is that confirmation students would use this booklet. And I'm very excited about this little thing because it has little one-page articles with discussion questions that are interesting and cool and capture your imagination, but they also go deep, okay? So like there's some great stuff on marriage. For example, there's like this whole story about Saints Hadrian and Natalia, or this Roman couple who have this very dramatic, tragic love story that really underscores the beauty of marriage. It's awesome. It's awesome material. So the idea is that confirmation students, before they receive that sacrament, would go through this booklet. So we're inviting all DREs to please consider that. And those who are reluctant or, oh gosh, we have our program all full, those who do this, share with them how awesome it is, okay? So next year they do it, all right? That's the idea with this. And I do really want to just emphasize, as we saw in that one slide about marriage, that marriage is a vocation in crisis. We need to be talking to our kids about marriage a lot. And so this will kind of be a foundation for that. Okay. All right. Another part of the vocation plan is to reach another age group of kids, which is first communicants. Beautiful age, 7 years old. My youngest is 11. I wish she was 7 still sometimes. So such a cute little age. And this is a very spiritually impressionable age, right? And so we want to invite DREs and schools to give a book, some kind of vocation-related book, to all first communicants. And the one that's suggested for 2023, this could be different books, but this is a suggested one, is this, The Unsolvable Problem by Mother Claire Matthias. She's a nun who lives in the Bronx in New York City. And she's a delightful person. She's written this really cute book that has awesome artwork that teaches kids about religious life. And I do need to mention, this is a book for girls and boys. And boys, okay? It's a really neat one. Do I have a sample over here? Yeah. There's some more on the table back there if you'd like to bring these home. Yes? A lot of these things are already gone. Okay, they're gone.
In your packet should be an email address for Amy Lowe. If you really are interested in those, email me and I will get you a copy.
Yeah. So one beautiful thing about these books that I love is that what do kids do with picture books? They ask mom and dad to read them to them, right? And so we want to bring parents into this discussion, of course. At my table at lunch with several deacons, the hot conversation topic at the table was, we need holy Catholic families who are going to form their kids in the faith, right? This is one little arsenal. You give it to the kid, Daddy, will you read this to me tonight? And if you remember having kids or maybe your grandkids, they want to read it over and over and over again. So anyway, that's the rationale behind this. Okay. We've shown a lot of support to the seminarians today. We want to make this kind of an endemic part of the rhythm of life in the diocese. And so declared January 31st, the Feast of St. John Bosco, as Support Our Seminarians Day. And the idea behind this is, of course, to encourage our seminarians, right? These guys are thinking they're going to get checks back here. I can tell, right? Yeah? Okay. No, it's to encourage them and pray for them. But also, the seminarians have a part to play with this too. So on this January 31st day, we want to keep our seminarians busy, maybe with a Zoom call with the confirmation class, okay? Or some sort of engagement with him and the diocese, a two-way communication. We also have back there, you may have seen them, they're small little postcards that kids can color and write a message to the seminarian and send it to them. So those are just a couple ideas. You can use your imagination and creativity to do this. Okay, talk about discernment. And this part of the plan is mainly dealing with older kids and young adults. And you're asking yourself, again, what is my role here? What is my role here? Oftentimes, when you plan a great event, Father Hoke knows this, when you plan a great event, you put all this energy into making it wonderful, but you have to have people there, right? You have to have people there. And so your job would be to help promote and encourage those in your parish or school to come to some of these things that we'll go through. So there's already a busy person's retreat, which we've talked about this and maybe renamed to something more vocation related. This is an awesome event where the diocese actually brings in some other vocation directors from other religious communities, and it's a whole program of discernment for young people, typically college-age folks. So that's the date is actually already on the books, October 2 through 6. And Father, it's true that even if they're not part of the campus ministry, if they're college age, they could come to this. Is that? Yeah. So encourage all college-age students to come to this. You will get more information about this in the coming weeks. Okay, this is a big one that we do need to talk about. The high school, seminary, and convent trip. Do you remember, was it number 6 or 7 on Father Pratt's schema there? Where you actually visit and see other discerners and you see what seminary life is like. Well, we're trying to fast forward that process a little bit by inviting a very large number of high school students to go to the college, to go to the seminary or the convent. So hopefully this year, this bus won't be nearly as enough, right? We'll need 4 or 5 of these buses, Father Hope, okay? Because last year, what happened was kids from the Catholic high schools went on this trip down to Lincoln, I think, to visit a seminary and a convent. But now we want to widen that to students from public schools as well. And so you DREs and catechists and youth ministers, a lot of information is going to come to you about this upcoming. And what is the beauty of this, right? What is the beauty? The beauty is it demystifies something. When they get in the environment, just like you saw in Trevor's video, it's like, man, this looks good. I like this. I could do this, right? Okay. That looks nice, huh? That's where I'd want my daughter to be, between 2 sisters, praying. Okay, Andrew and Miriam dinners. I'll just explain this briefly. Andrew dinner is a long time practice in the U.S. church, where the bishop would go to a local parish, for example, and invite pastors from around that area to bring young men to a dinner. And then bishop will speak, pastor would share a vocation story, etc. And the Miriam dinner would be similar, but for women, with other religious women there. This upcoming school year, these are actually going to be on campus in Kearney and Shadron, I believe. Details are still being worked out exactly when those are going to happen. But this is a wonderful thing. I did this when I was right before I became a seminarian. And I'll tell you the thing that stood out to me the most was, like, I had seen Father Alan McDonald at parish, at my own parish, and I'd seen Father Jim Costigan at this other parish, but they weren't connected to me. You know what I mean? And all of a sudden they were like, punching each other's arms and like interacting and had some fraternity. I was like, man, okay, this is a cool, this is a good thing, right? So gets priests together with young men. Okay, and then next one, discernment groups. Again, it's best to discern together with other like-minded people. Father Pratt, tonight we're going to meet, and Father Pratt is very, very good at discernment groups. He's run many discernment groups. He has a really cool program for how the students can actually run it themselves to some degree. And it's great. Like, really. Like, these guys get together, they have fun together, they eat together, they pray together. Like, one of my favorite parts is your no man left behind. So let's say you have like 8 guys in the group. Each one gets a role in the discernment group. And there's one that's called the no man left behind guy. That means if somebody misses the meeting, it's your job. You have to call him and tell him everything that happened at the meeting. We're not going to let no man left behind. You got to know what happened, right? So it's like a tight-knit band of brothers type effect. So Father Pratt's going to talk about that with us, a smaller group this evening. We're going to work to have vocation themes for summer events. That's already happened this summer, and we'll continue. I put this in here too. This is kind of cool. This isn't really part of the vocation plan, but I just wanted to let you know about this, is if you do a VBS, you DREs, if you do a VBS, this is cool because it's a vocation Bible school, right? A vocation Bible school. And you see these little cutouts. I think Bob Campney had brought some that are out in the lobby too. But it's a whole 5-day VBS program, and it's really cool and fun. And this lady, she's from Minnesota. She helped develop this. She's got a lot of energy. Kids love it. So, and it's to learn more about that, it's vocationbibleschool.com. Okay. We are going to have a time for question and answers in just a second, too. Just going to go over a few more things. Okay. Inspiration/communication. We already talked about the great job that the diocese did with the recent magazine, but Angie and Greg and others in the chancery, it's top of mind for them that the diocese has a new initiative, and there's going to be a lot of communications about vocations in the coming weeks, months, years. 2 things I want y'all to pay attention to is we want to put a lot of effort into National Vocation Awareness Week. You're going to get a packet. Parishes will get a packet to help celebrate this. So it's November 6th, 12. And also, you guys do know that we've just started a Eucharistic revival, 3 years, every parish in America. So that's going to tie into Vocation Awareness Week. Importantly, this is the week that you would choose to teach vocations in a Catholic school. So the vocation curriculum, the 7th is a Monday. That's when you'd start teaching it. Okay. And then World Day of Prayer for Vocations. As Bob Campney said at lunchtime today, when people walk into the church, they better know that this is what the day is, right? We are praying for vocations today. I'll confess that I always thought this was like a weird title. Because it's like, we're only going to pray for vocations one day, right? That seems odd. Well, the way I look at it is it's the day that you launch new prayer programs. So, for example, if you were launching the Vocations Crucifix, you'd launch it on this day, right? Okay. Okay. So those are the main elements of the vocation plan. You are going to get communiques about this going forward. You guys are play many different roles in your parish. And I want to emphasize that sometimes it's good to have other people in your parish in a formal group. If you don't have a Sarah Club, sometimes it's good to have a parish vocation ministry or team. And I think just by virtue of you being here today, you should feel deputized to go back and start that, okay? I hereby commission you. I don't really have that authority, but I'm encouraging you, okay, to go back and do that in your parish. Because if you wait for Father to do it, or you wait for somebody else to do it, if it's everybody's responsibility, then it's nobody's responsibility, right? So take the ball and run with it. Or ask a friend. If you don't feel that outspoken, ask a friend to help you or something. But take the initiative to start a parish vocation committee. Just a few, before we get into Q&A, just a few recommendations for this. 1 or 2 leaders. There's a book called Hundredfold, which some of you, I think, know about. Rhonda Grunwald had come to the diocese before to do a workshop. It's a whole little handbook on how to have a parish vocation committee. Meet with your pastor. Talk about plans. Collaborate with him. Plan realistic projects. Not these gigantic things. Well, if every single family would do this, well, every single family is not going to do that, okay? Whatever it is, except for eat. So be realistic. I said coordinate efforts around annual events. And then this is kind of important. When you're choosing what to do in your parish, if there's a choice between hand out some brochures or spend 30 minutes in the 3rd grade classroom, do the thing in the classroom. Prioritize people-to-people stuff instead of just information stuff. Talk with people. Learn about them. So, okay. Last thing. Remember the 4 I's of vocation ministry. This is something that my friend, Father Brannon, developed, and I'm going to mention it to you because I think it's an awesome little framework as you're going forward. The 4 I's. The first one is inspiration. Are you really inspiring kids to love the Lord Jesus and to dedicate their lives to Him? Two, good information. If you don't have good information, you're likely to make a bad decision, right? That's why we tell young men who are discerning the priesthood, don't discern what you think the priesthood is, right? Discern what it actually is. So there's a book called To Save 1,000 Souls. There's Priests for the Third Millennium. Young men need good information, right? And young women as well. Invitation. I think Father Pratt's going to talk about that this afternoon a little bit more. Your invitation is huge. If you're a priest, if you're a deacon, but even if you're just a teacher, and especially if you're a dad or mom, inviting your kids to consider a priestly or religious vocation. The fourth I is intimacy with Jesus. So, what I tell little kids sometimes at the VBS, I said, why doesn't God just text you your vocation or call your mom's phone? And I get one of the kids to come up here, and they'll stand right here, and I'll do a stage whisper, and I'll say, I love you. And I'll do it to where he can hear it really well, but the other kids can't hear it as well. I say, why did I do that, right? Why did I do that? Because I first want you to be close to me before I tell you your vocation, right? Jesus wants intimacy first, right? Communion and intimacy first. Then he can whisper, be a priest, or whatever it is. And then the apostrophe S is service. So like Father Pratt said, if a kid's just sitting at home, only cyber discerning, or only reading the catechism, which I don't know many kids that do that, but if it's not active, it's not happening, right? So getting kids to serve is huge, because then they get outside of themselves. They see how good it is to give of themselves to others. Okay. The three I's of vocation ministry there. I'm going to open up the floor for a few minutes. Father Hoke is going to come up as well. And if you have questions about any aspect of the vocation plan, curriculum, prayer, anything like that, we have I think a microphone, Greg, is that what we're going to do? Okay.
Any questions?
Questions?
Is this material available in Spanish?
Is the material available in Spanish? The curriculum part is not available in Spanish. We find that most of the school-age kids speak English, so it wasn't worth the cost and hassle, because in the classroom setting, most of them speak Spanish. However, we have a lot of information for parents in Spanish. So if you go to vianivocations.com, there's like a Spanish section somewhere, I think. I should know that. But there is. We have a lot of stuff. So.
Okay, ever since I was in grade school, which was a few years ago, we considered the single life as a vocation. And I noticed you did put it up there, but explained that in some realms it isn't considered because you don't take vows. Right. But then when you went to the curriculum, you only mentioned the three major vocations. And I think in high school, we do lose a lot of kids. And I think when you take surveys and talk to some of the kids that are out of high school, the church doesn't want us. We're single. We're not considered part of that vocation. And I think it has to be stressed to them. We have a lot of wonderful guys and women who do many things in our parishes. Amen. And they have to be told in high school and nurtured that that is just as much service to their God as anything else. So I think that's one part that needs to be gone over in high school, is to give them that feeling that they are, part of it.
Yeah. Amen. Did everyone hear that? That was good. That was very good. I agree. And as I mentioned, the Catechism talks about single people living in the spirit of the Beatitudes, it says, right? And as I mentioned, I've had a lot of single people impact my life. It is harder in the younger grades to talk about the single life because it doesn't seem like an aspirational thing for them sometimes. But nonetheless, I do think we should include the single life in the conversation.
First, I want to say that I did do one of those, the kindergarten with 2 grandchildren. Just did the first one, but they really enjoyed it, and I did with their mom too. So it is good. My second question, though, is not about the curriculum, but about priesthood, about, in the seminary, they're all together a lot, and you've got the camaraderie, yeah. and togetherness, and iron sharpens iron. So I'm just thinking, do you find, or have you done any statistical information on whether priests should, instead of each having a separate rectory, have more combined living quarters?
I think that would be a great thing if it's possible. Our presbyterate is spread out quite a bit. It would make, somebody in Mullen staying with someone, living together, the travel times. I suppose in towns like Kearney, Grand Island, North Platte, that's something maybe we can work towards. A desire to live together as priests and community, to collaborate and be able to work together. But it's definitely something that could be possible, I suppose.
Do you know if there's anything that's provided for like high school kids that would compare to a Newman Center for college kids? I see a lot of kids who have lost direction because their parents were probably not catechized properly and are not a good influence for those kids, but they still want to be a part of the church. Is there some kind of a Newman type club for high school kids?
Yeah, I think that's up to each individual diocese youth ministry office in those schools to organize opportunities for those kids to have an experience like a Newman Center would, small group discipleship, and getting that going, discernment groups. Those are definitely possible. It just takes a little organization and someone to get that ball rolling. But in the campus ministry office in the school, the youth office and diocese could be good places to start, as well as the teachers of the schools to get those groups started, like young discipleship groups.
Just to add to that, just one observation I have of the Diocese of Grand Island is you do need more high school youth ministries in parishes. That's part of the discipleship equation, right? I think that's needed. For me, when I compare Grand Island to other dioceses, I would say it's lacking here. There are some parishes, but not that many that have vibrant youth ministry. And if only, you can do like a hybrid youth ministry where it's not, every single Sunday night you're meeting, but at least if you organize the high school kids to go to events like retreats or conventions or that sort of thing, can be really good.
Okay, I really enjoyed the day here. I think it's been very wonderful and very educational. I've been to a lot of different things through my life. But the one thing, and I belong to the Knights of Columbus, we have the Knights of Columbus in I think every parish, and they're supposed to be the right arms of the priest, and I know most of them are. And so we need to have those involved too. I just thought I'd bring that up.
Amen. Rise up, Knights.
I just wanted to invite all of you, whether you work with youth in your parish or not, I would like to invite you to attend the Safe Environment Continuing Education this year at your parish. As Sam mentioned earlier today, you need to be inspired in your own vocation to inspire others. And so the topic for our continuing ed for safe environment this year is really to help those individuals who are working with youth to be inspired in their own vocation and to nurture their own vocation. So find your parish safe environment coordinator or school safe environment coordinator and find out when their training is going to be, and please do attend that.
And they have a table at the back too, with full of wonderful stuff. Be sure to take that stuff.
Father Hoke, I've heard you mention the rule of 11s many times in my vocation work. Can you speak to that?
Yeah, so you just want to emphasize the age of 11 and 11th grade. Those are decision points for young kids in their life. And so just to be more attentive at those age groups as they move forward. Like when we work with the Higher Ground Extreme Faith, we have a lot of 11-year-olds there, 10, 11, 12-year-olds. And they're thinking about things. They're starting to desire to make a commitment to their faith. It's a great time to really just to kind of plug in and pay attention to them, along with juniors in high school. It's another age group that's at a decision point in their life about where they might be called. They might not think about God's call at that time unless we help lead and guide them and disciple them, but they're thinking about that. They're thinking about colleges, where they're going to go. So the Higher Ground High School Retreat is another thing where you see that all the time. They're thinking about what's next, and they're always asking, what college are you going to? So it's a good opportunity to really encounter them, lead and guide them.
He mentioned the Knights of Columbus, and I just asked these guys here, and they said there is a Squires group that's for younger men. What age did you say? What age? He's not sure what age, but I mean, do you know what the youngest they can take in to starting with the Knights of Columbus?
Oh,
He knows. 10 to 18?
Yeah.
Oh.
That's from the national level, but I think there's still local things that can happen.
I guess a couple things is, the first thing is, discipleship, in like 10 words or less, can you define that? We've been using that word a lot. And then my second question is, our Pope Francis, just as a person and as he moves about is very inspiring. Do you, every once in a while, a homily, a daily homily, I'll hit social media and, he'll speak to the priests of the world, or he'll speak to married couples. Through this, are you in touch with what he's doing and what he's saying?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, it's interesting. The first question that you just had about what is discipleship, my first thought was a Pope Francis quote, and then you said Pope Francis right after that, is he talks about, the first thing is encountering Jesus. That's the beginning of discipleship. You have to encounter Jesus as a human being, as a real person, a man who came to earth, who is God. You've got to have that encounter. But further than that, I would say you need some community to be a disciple, right? You can't be a Lone Ranger disciple. So that's why it's important as young people, they've got to have other believers around them as well. As far as like you mentioned, like Pope Francis and his various homilies, talks, he has some great stuff on vocation. One of my favorites is he talks about discipleship and discernment are two sides of the same coin. Right? He says, if you first encounter Jesus and you say, Lord, I give my whole life to you, the very next question is, Lord, what do I do with my life? Right? So it's two sides of the same coin is what he talks about when he talks about discipleship and vocation.
This is both for Father Hoek and also for Father Todd at Chadron. This kind of more is on for the both of you. For the Newman Centers working into that, would you rather see like the diocese take hold in where you have like the visits to seminaries and such? Would you like to have that where like parishes or where the Newman Center has like an open Newman Center welcome weekend almost for students like in the summer before school's going in or in that spring semester? Or would you rather be like on a parish by parish basis?
In terms of a visit to the seminary or?
In terms of like a visit to the Newman Center. So that students would be able to encounter the Newman Center before they attend the university proper, whether it be UNK or Chadron State, or if they decide to go to UNL, UNO, Creighton, whatever university.
Okay. He's going to? Yeah, he did. I think if we to organize, it would be a lot more efficient, I think, to just do like an open day or week where parishes can visit the Newman Center versus coming whenever during the regular schedule, just because there's so much going on. And so trying to organize something in the summer, I know the summer's already packed, or even during the year, of like an open house at the Newman Center so youth can see that, encounter that. It's a little easier for like parishes around the area, around like UNK, for instance, to visit, come over like on a Wednesday night when you're gathering, bring your high school students over. But yeah, I think having like a open house type of event would be very helpful and a lot more efficient.
Just quick, speaking to that same point of connecting current high school kids with the Newman Centers. The reality is that about 85% of college-age Catholics do not attend Mass on a regular basis. And that actually starts in the first 3 weeks of arriving on campus. They make a big mistake, they do the wrong thing, they don't show up for Mass, they feel guilty about it, don't go again, and it spirals really fast. The University of Nebraska at Lincoln did a study a number of years ago, and they realized that the people that the students are connected with in the first 2 to 3 weeks on campus are the same people they'll spend the rest of the 4 years in college with, and will be their connections throughout life as being, significant others in their lives. And so the first couple weeks on campus are really important. That being said, there is an organization called Newman Connection, and Newman Connection now has an app out that you in the parishes can encourage kids that are going off to college to download that app to get connected with the Newman Center at wherever college they're going to. And one of the best things that you can do with your high school seniors as they're graduating is two things, okay? Number one, that is to ask them, what has God got planned for you next, rather than what are you doing next, okay? So what are you gonna do after graduation? No, it's what is God doing with you after graduation? But then number two is to encourage them to spend the first 2 weeks in their Newman Center, and that's the only commitment. Just ask them to spend the first 2 weeks on campus going to the Newman Center, getting them connected. If you've got a kid in high school, drop them at the Newman Center when you drop them off at college. That's exactly what you need to do. Because if they build relationships in the first 2 weeks at the Newman Center, those same people will be in their lives for the next 4 years, and they'll be part of that 15% rather than the 85%. And amen, if we do it right, that 15% becomes 85%. Amen?
Yeah, and hey, to build on that, what did Sarah Connect come out of? Newman Connect came out of the Sarah Club, was actually first pioneered in Sarah because of realizing this problem. So it's kind of all connected here.
My question, so like for my personal vocation story, I'd say like the biggest part was just my family was just pivotal in my desire to go to the seminary. And so I was wondering, like, what can families do to just foster vocations within their household?
Yeah. If you didn't see the little green brochure on the back, there's a thing called 7 Ways Families Can Foster Vocations. But Trevor hits on just like this absolutely critical aspect, which is, the faith is caught, not taught, as people say, and it begins in the home. I don't think there are quick, easy answers for this, Trevor. I think that if you grow up as a good Catholic kid in a good Catholic home, you almost would never even have to say vocation, and the kid would naturally want to think about the priesthood. So we need good, holy Catholic families. I'll say this. When I work with vocation offices throughout the country, vocation directors will come to these conclusions like, man, we need good, holy Catholic families, or man, we need vibrant youth ministries, right? Or we need fill in the blank, right? The problem is like the vocation office can't also be the discipleship office, can't also be the family life office, can't also be the youth office. You see what I mean? So this is where it's the whole church. It's the whole church that's needed. It's not going to come out of a program from this room. I mean, we need to live our faith as Catholics first, basically.
Just on a note with the family, I just wanted to give a parent's testimony. I'm from Denver. My wife's from Spalding. We moved back to Spalding, but have 3 kids. Our oldest one went off to Colorado School of Mines in Golden to college and got connected with Focus. And it must have been maybe 6 months later, he calls up my daughter and says, hey, we're going to go down to the Little Sisters of the Poor in Denver. We're going to have a pancake breakfast, and we're going to have everybody help out there from Focus. Would you like to come? She says, well, yeah, maybe. What time? Well, we're going to leave at 5. I'll pick you up at 5, so we're down there at 6. Oh, no way. I'm not getting up that early. Oh, come on. You got to come, Megan. So she comes down there and gets the whole treatment, and she meets one of the sisters there, Sister Caroline. And she started talking to them. They sent letters back and forth. In the meantime, my daughter Megan went off to college at Benedictine College in Atchison. And she was on a volleyball scholarship. Well, she didn't like the volleyball. And so she decided to just enjoy the campus life. And then the sisters called her up and said, well, why don't you come on down to Kansas City? You can come down and have lunch with us and visit. She gets to going down there, and she called home back to Denver and, hey, Mom, I'm down here at the Little Sisters for the weekend if you need to get a hold of me. And I'm doing my homework down there, doing my clothes, and she just loved it. And it just kept evolving. So she gets to be a senior at Benedictine, and she announced that she decided she wanted to be a Little Sister of the Poor. So, yeah, in 2013 she entered, and she's in France now, been there for 3 years. And she's going to make her final vows here next August 23. On the other side of the coin, my son John that went to the School of Mines, he had a friend there that was a senior, and through Focus and that, he asked my son John, I'm going to be leaving. Would you like to take my place with my spiritual director? And John says, oh, okay, sure. Well, who's that? Well, it was Archbishop Chaput. So, you have two kids at different roles. He wanted to be an engineer, and he did talk to Archbishop about being a priest and discerned over it, but Archbishop says, no, John, you'd be a better engineer. So, but he's, it's just those things that parents, I think you need to be open about. It is amazing, though, how many people, after they heard our daughter was going to be a sister, oh, is that really what you want? Is that what she wants? So you do have to encourage them and just let them know that, yeah, it's God's doings. Be open. Amen. So I just wanted to let you know from a parent's view, because I'm not a teacher, and just try to be a good parent.
Amen. Thank you. That's beautiful. I think we have time for maybe one or two more questions, but then we need to take a little break. We've got one back here.
Kind of going with what he was talking about as far as, do you really want to do that and whatnot? I feel like we're in it's the Catholic Church versus society, right? So if you ask someone today, what do they want to do when they grow up, if you will, is that not the right question, because it's going to be doctor, lawyer, whatever. But really, if we're honest about it, and there's gray in this, so maybe you guys can help my mind understand it more, but we have a difference between vocation and occupation. Mm-hmm. And if I want to really, truly be married and have a family, does doctor truly help that vocation? Because you're gone all the time. Yeah, you got all the money in the world, and that's what society thinks we need. But does that help me truly foster vocations long term? So there's just that gray area to me of occupation versus vocation, and maybe it's how we ask the question, but can you give any thought to that to maybe make it a little more black and white?
I'll just say briefly, I don't think you're ever going to get any black and white on that, but I do agree with your assessment that people need, your occupation in life affects your spirituality, right? It affects your spirituality. So there are some things, I think, even beyond being called to marriage or one of these primary vocations, I think God can call you to an avocation or an occupation that is good for your soul, your spouse's soul, your kid's soul, and well-being. But I don't think I think you might have to live in a world of gray there, unfortunately.
Yeah, it's at the heart of it. It's always about what does God desire in me? How did He create me to be? How does He create me to respond to His love that He created me out of? And so it's a constant, everyday discernment of how do I give myself back to God as gift. And so I constantly want to be giving myself back as gift. And so just remembering the holiness, oneness with God is the top end. Our vocation, that we've been talking about, is the path to get there. But then there's the occupation that can support that. But it's constantly a discernment of, is this occupation taking away or a detriment? So finding balance the way I can give myself as a gift. And I never want to allow this thing that's supposed to serve to be at the service of all this path to God and this gift to myself to take over and be the center. This is the center. My path to holiness is the center. And so always discerning that, making sure that my heart is listening to the voice of God each and every day, and never allowing the occupation to take center stage on that, even though it's important and it might take up all my time in one day versus another day. just that discerning heart, that listening heart, to be able to give myself as a gift.
Maybe one more quick question. One more. Who do we have? We have one right here. Oh boy. Microphone is a little buzzy.
Okay. Well, I'll try to be quick. So I guess when I knew this was coming up, I thought, now how does this make, which would the goal be that we look different in a year? And as I look through the plan, everything looks great. So, we're praying the prayer and we've got the vocation, all these little pieces. But what I see is, like what Father just shared, we're directing everything to the youth. But am I engaged? Do I have what Father just explained?
Mm-hmm.
If us adults don't have it, we can't give it. So even in that Diocesan plan, the second was for every young person, and I'm sorry I didn't write down everything else that was said, but I thought we need to cross out young and put person. Every one of us needs to be daily discerning to know what you said at the very beginning, all my life. We want to give the Lord all my life, every day of my life.
Right. I mean, this is exactly why I opened with that, is that we can't ask others to give their whole lives to Jesus if we haven't given our whole lives to him. And yes, every single person here needs to work on holiness. Absolutely. I mean, I can't argue with that. I guess this is just kind of a more focused, what you're saying is true. I think the vocation plan is maybe slightly more focused on this discernment question in those tender ages of life, I guess is the way I would say it.
And I think the beauty is it ties into the vision and mission of the entire diocese, the entire church. And so the vocation plan is focused on youth because the vocations office mission is to help young men and women find their call in God. And so that's the mission of the vocation office, but it ties into the whole mission of the diocese to create a culture of discipleship, the culture of following the Lord, a culture of putting first the kingdom of God, of prayer and discernment and learning to grow in holiness as one family of God under the leadership of our bishop and working together towards that. So the beauty is, I think, noticing that is a beautiful thing, the Holy Spirit talking, that it's tying into the sensitivity and desire and thirst of your own hearts, the mission of our diocese and our church, and it ties together very beautifully. And that's a beautiful thing, actually, that it is connect. But now, to your point, now we have to continue to go to the wellspring where that thirst for holiness that all of us have is fostered and grown. And so just to continue that walk together.